Clara had always been different. She wasn't loud. She didn't chase attention. And she certainly didn't know how to make friends easily. While other kids laughed together and shared secrets in school, Clara often found herself sitting quietly at the edge of the playground, watching the world with a mix of curiosity and longing. She wanted to belong, to be part of something. But somehow, she always felt invisible. Her classmates didn't notice her, or maybe they just didn't care. And the few times someone tried to get close, Clara would shy away, too afraid of being hurt to let anyone in. Years passed and the pattern didn't change. High school ended, college ended, and Clara found herself in her mid-20s, still without a true friend. She had acquaintances, people who would greet her politely at work or at the small cafe she frequented, but no one she could call when she felt lonely. No one who understood her completely. Her heart ached quietly, a constant, dull pain that she hid behind polite smiles and calm nods. Even her own brother, Daniel, noticed her loneliness. He cared deeply, often asking if she wanted to go out or meet new people. But Clara always had excuses. She told herself she didn't have time, that she was fine being alone, yet deep inside, she felt a gnawing emptiness that she couldn't shake. One rainy afternoon, Clara found herself walking through the city park. The sky was grey, and puddles reflected the dull light of the street lamps. Couples held hands, friends laughed and shared stories, and children splashed joyfully in the puddles. Clara felt a twinge of envy. She wished she could be like them, carefree and connected, someone who mattered to someone else. She hugged her coat tightly around her, feeling the cold seep through her bones, and walked on, pretending she wasn't watching, pretending she wasn't longing for what seemed so easy for everyone else. She paused at a quiet bench, dripping rainwater from her umbrella onto the ground. She watched a young woman throw crumbs to the birds, laughing at their frantic little hops and pecks. The simplicity of the moment should have been comforting, but instead, it reminded Clara of her own isolation. She thought of all the years she had spent quietly, waiting for friendship, waiting for connection, waiting for someone to see her for who she truly was. And in that moment, she made a quiet promise to herself. I won't be lonely forever. I will find someone who understands me. I will find a friend. The thought gave her a strange mix of hope and fear. Hope because she finally admitted what she wanted. Fear because it seemed impossible. She had been alone for so long that the idea of opening up, trusting someone, felt almost unnatural. But Clara was determined. She kept walking through the park, letting the cold drizzle wash over her, and imagined what it would be like to finally share her thoughts and dreams with someone who truly cared. As she walked past the small bridge over the pond, Clara noticed a figure standing quietly near the water. He was tall, with a calm presence, staring down at the ripples in the water. For a moment she felt startled, unsure if she should speak or just keep walking. Then, unexpectedly, he turned and smiled at her. It wasn't a broad, flashy smile. It was gentle, warm, and quiet, but it made her heart skip a beat. "Hi," he said softly. "Do you come here often?" Clara blinked, caught off guard. She wasn't used to strangers talking to her, especially strangers who seemed genuinely interested. She hesitated, then nodded. "Sometimes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm Ethan," he said, extending his hand. Clara hesitated for a moment but then shook it. His handshake was firm but kind. "I just moved into the building near the park," he added. "It's nice to see someone out here enjoying the rain, even if it's a little miserable." Clara smiled faintly. "Yes, it's peaceful," she replied. There was something about his presence that felt safe, almost familiar, even though she had never met him before. She found herself talking more than she expected, telling him about her walks, the books she loved, and her quiet days. Ethan listened without interrupting, nodding thoughtfully, asking gentle questions. By the time the rain began to ease, Clara felt lighter than she had in years. She had shared pieces of herself with someone, and he had listened. She realized how much she had missed simply being heard, being acknowledged, being seen. For the first time in a long time, she felt a spark of connection, a small, fragile thread linking her to someone else. As they parted ways, Ethan smiled again. "See you around?" he asked. Clara nodded, her heart fluttering. "Yes, I hope so," she whispered. Walking home, Clara felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. Excitement because she had met someone new, someone kind. Fear because the feeling was unfamiliar, and she wasn't sure how to handle it. She thought of Daniel, wishing he could see her smile like this, hoping he would be happy for her. And as she entered her apartment, shaking off the remaining raindrops, she sat by the window and watched the city lights flicker in the distance, feeling a tiny hope take root in her heart. That night, Clara lay in bed, thinking about the encounter. She wondered if she had imagined it, if perhaps it was just a fleeting moment. But deep down, she knew it had been real. Something had shifted, quietly, gently, in a way she hadn't expected. She realized that maybe, just maybe, her long years of solitude were about to change. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to hope that she could finally find the connection she had been waiting for all her life. And as sleep claimed her, Clara whispered to herself in the dark, "I'm ready for life to surprise me. I'm ready to not be alone anymore." After that first meeting in the park, Clara couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. His calm smile and gentle voice lingered in her mind, warming a place inside her heart that had long been cold. For days, she replayed their conversation, remembering the way he had listened, truly listened, without judgment or interruption. It was strange for her, so rare to feel that kind of connection, that she found herself hoping for another chance to meet him. It wasn't long before that chance came. One morning, Clara stepped out for her usual walk to clear her mind before work. And there he was, leaning casually against a lamppost, as if he had been waiting for her. Her heart skipped, a mix of surprise and excitement making her cheeks warm. "Ethan," she said softly, almost unable to believe her eyes. "Clara," he greeted warmly, his smile familiar now, comforting even. "I didn't expect to see you today. I like walking in the mornings," Clara stammered, trying to sound casual, though her heart raced. Double quotes, "Well, lucky for both of us," he said, gesturing toward the path. "We can walk together." They fell into step side by side. Words came easily, flowing like a gentle river. Ethan asked about her work, her favorite spots in the city, and her dreams. Clara answered honestly, sharing pieces of herself she had kept hidden for years. The conversation didn't feel forced or awkward. It felt natural, like two souls discovering each other in small, careful steps. Over the next few weeks, they ran into each other frequently, sometimes at the grocery store, reaching for the same loaf of bread. Sometimes in the cafe Clara loved, where they'd exchange a shy smile across the counter. Sometimes just on the street, a chance meeting that neither could ignore. Each encounter, though brief, left Clara feeling lighter, more hopeful. She realized she was beginning to look forward to these moments, to the warmth of his attention, and the easy flow of conversation. Ethan had a quiet way of noticing things. He remembered the little details about Clara's favorite books, her favorite coffee, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. He asked about her thoughts, her feelings, and he listened with a patience Clara had never experienced before. And slowly, without her even realizing it, she started to trust him. One rainy afternoon, A sudden downpour caught Clara by surprise while she was walking home from the library. She hurried down the empty streets, umbrella in one hand, books in the other, but the wind was too strong and the umbrella turned inside out. She laughed nervously, frustrated, as the rain soaked her hair and clothes. Just as panic started to creep in, a familiar voice called out, "Clara!" Ethan was running toward her, his coat flapping around him, a worried look on his face. "Are you okay?" he asked, reaching her side. Clara nodded, laughing through the rain. "I'm fine. Mostly. He teased gently, shaking his head. "Here, take my coat. You'll catch a cold." Clara hesitated, but he draped the coat over her shoulders. Warmth spread through her, not just from the coat but from his presence. They ran together, laughing, to the nearest cafe. Inside, dripping wet but safe. They sat across from each other, sharing the small table, letting the storm rage outside while the world inside felt quiet and private. That evening, as they sipped hot chocolate, Clara felt a thrill she hadn't felt in years. There was a tenderness in Ethan's gaze, a quiet admiration that made her heart swell. She found herself talking about things she had never shared with anyone before, her fears of being alone, her longing for a friend, the loneliness that had shadowed her life. Ethan listened without interruption, nodding and smiling at all the right moments, making her feel seen in a way she had almost forgotten existed. Days turned into weeks, and their connection deepened. Clara began to notice little changes in herself. She smiled more freely, laughed more often, and even started taking small risks, like suggesting a walk in the park or sharing her favorite coffee blend with him. Ethan seemed to notice these changes too. He complimented her quietly, gently, never crossing boundaries, but always letting her know he cared. One evening, under the warm glow of the streetlights, Clara and Ethan walked together after a long day. The city felt different that night, magical somehow, as if it had conspired to create this perfect moment. Clara felt a flutter in her chest, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She wanted to tell him everything she felt, but words seemed inadequate, too heavy for the delicate connection they had built. Ethan, as if reading her mind, reached for her hand. It was simple, natural, a gentle touch that sent warmth through her entire body. Clara's heart raced. She didn't pull away. Instead, she let herself feel the moment fully, the quiet joy of being close to someone who cared, the thrill of sharing this silent understanding, the hope of what might come next. But just as her heart began to soar, dark clouds of doubt crept in. What if it was just a fleeting connection? What if she was imagining the closeness they shared? Clara forced herself to focus on the present, to enjoy the warmth of his hand and the sound of his voice. She reminded herself that the past didn't define the future, and perhaps this small, fragile bond was exactly what she had been waiting for. Then, suddenly, a sharp clap of thunder shook the quiet street. Clara jumped, clutching her coat tighter. The rain, which had been soft, began to fall in heavy sheets again. Ethan looked at her, concern flashing in his eyes. "We need to get inside," he said quickly. They dashed under the awning of a closed shop, laughing at the absurdity of the storm. Clara's hair was plastered to her face, her clothes soaked, and yet, somehow, she felt more alive than she had in years. She looked at Ethan, and he looked at her, and in that gaze, she felt a quiet understanding, a promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the storm raged on, Clara realized something important. She had spent so many years alone, hiding behind walls of fear and self-doubt. But now, here was someone who didn't just see her, he valued her. The thought filled her with hope and a strange, exhilarating nervousness. For the first time in a long time, she imagined a life that wasn't lonely. A life where she could share her heart and her dreams without fear. And yet, just as she began to relax, the cafe owner politely asked them to leave. The shop was closing for the night. Ethan and Clara stepped out into the rain, shivering but smiling. They walked together, side by side, sharing warmth where they could. The storm no longer feeling quite as frightening because they faced it together. As they reached the edge of the park where they had first met, Ethan stopped and turned to her. "Clara," he said softly, "I really enjoy spending time with you. I hope we can do this again." Clara felt her heart leap. She nodded, almost unable to speak, overwhelmed by the depth of her feelings. "Yes, I'd like that," she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. They parted that night with a simple wave, but in Clara's heart, something had shifted forever. The long years of loneliness, the silent nights and empty walks, seemed to fade just a little. She realized that connections like this, gentle, patient, real, were rare, and that maybe, just maybe, life had finally given her a chance at the friendship and closeness she had always dreamed of. Walking home, her clothes wet and her hair messy, Clara smiled to herself, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the storm. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to hope. And in that quiet, rain-soaked evening, she knew that her life was beginning to change, and that Ethan was becoming a part of that change in a way she had never imagined. Clara couldn't stop thinking about Ethan after their stormy evening together. Every memory of their laughter, their quiet talks, and the way his hand had brushed hers made her heart race. It was different this time. It wasn't just excitement. It was a warmth that settled deep inside. A feeling she hadn't dared to feel for years. She realized that her long loneliness had left her cautious. But now she wanted more. She wanted connection. She wanted trust. And she wanted him in her life. The next morning she woke up early, restless, replaying their moments in her mind. She decided to take a walk to the park again, hoping for a chance to see him. The streets were quiet, the city slowly waking, and as she passed the cafe where they had shared hot chocolate, she felt a pang of longing. She thought about how small gestures like the way he remembered her favorite coffee, or the way he laughed at her stories, meant more to her than she could have imagined. Every step she took was fueled by anticipation and hope. When Clara reached the park, she paused near their usual meeting spot. The bench where she had first noticed him, the bridge where the water reflected the morning sun. Everything felt familiar and comforting. She scanned the park, hoping to see him approaching, but there was no sign. Her heart sank slightly, and doubt crept in. Maybe he wouldn't come. Maybe this connection was fragile, just like the rain-soaked days before. But just as she was about to leave, she noticed a small envelope tucked under the bench. Curious, Clara picked it up and carefully opened it. Inside was a note written in neat, careful handwriting. "Meet me at the old cafe at 5 p.m. I've been waiting for you." Her heart skipped. It wasn't just a note. It was a gesture, a quiet promise, a sign that he had thought about her too. She felt a thrill she hadn't felt in years. This was real. He cared, and he wanted to see her again. The day passed slowly, each hour dragging longer than the last. Clara tried to focus on small tasks at home, reading a book, tidying her apartment, even making tea, but her mind kept wandering to the cafe, to the note, to the possibility of what might happen when she saw him again. She rehearsed what she would say, but deep down she knew words weren't necessary. Their connection had grown quietly, naturally, and sometimes words could only get in the way. When the clock finally struck 5, Clara hurried to the cafe, her heart pounding with excitement and nervousness. The familiar bell above the door jingled as she entered, and there he was, Ethan, standing near the counter, smiling, holding 2 cups of steaming hot chocolate. His calm presence filled the space, making the cafe feel warmer, brighter, as if the room itself was alive with hope. "Hi," he said softly, his eyes lighting up when they met hers. "Hi," she replied, smiling despite the nervous flutter in her chest. They sat at a small table near the window, the soft light illuminating their faces. Outside, the city moved on, people walking past, unaware of the small, intimate world unfolding inside the cafe. Clara felt a wave of comfort and happiness. Here, she could be herself without fear, without judgment, without the weight of her past loneliness pressing on her. For hours they talked. About dreams, about fears, about moments that had shaped them both. Ethan shared stories of his childhood, the places he had traveled, the little things that made him who he was. Clara shared her thoughts on books, her quiet days, the longing that had haunted her for so long. They laughed together, sometimes in bursts, sometimes in quiet smiles that lingered longer than words. Each moment felt precious, a thread weaving their lives together in a gentle, unspoken way. At one point, Ethan reached across the table, brushing his hand lightly against hers. It was a simple gesture, yet it sent a shiver through Clara's body. Her heart beat faster, but it wasn't fear, just a mix of excitement and deep affection. She realized that trust and warmth could grow slowly, that romance didn't need grand gestures to feel real. It was in the quiet moments, the shared laughter, the small attentions, the understanding that came without needing to speak. As the evening drew closer, the cafe began to empty. The lights dimmed, creating a soft, intimate glow around their table. Ethan looked at Clara, his eyes calm but full of emotion. "Clara," he said gently, "I've enjoyed every moment we've spent together. I hope this is just the beginning." Clara felt her chest tighten with joy. She nodded, almost unable to speak, tears threatening to spill, not out of sadness, but out of the overwhelming happiness that someone had finally seen her, understood her, and valued her presence. "It is," she whispered, her voice trembling with sincerity. "It's just the beginning." They left the cafe together, stepping into the cool night. The city lights shimmered on the wet streets, creating reflections that danced with each step. They walked slowly, side by side, talking and laughing, the silence between them comfortable and warm. Clara felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The loneliness that had haunted her for so long seemed distant now, replaced by hope, anticipation, and a quiet certainty that she was no longer alone. As they reached the park, Ethan stopped and looked at her. "Clara," he said softly, "I don't want this to end tonight. Can we continue this journey together?" Clara's heart soared. She reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. "Yes," she said, her voice steady now, full of conviction. "I want that too." They walked the rest of the way in comfortable silence, their hands still linked, hearts beating in a quiet rhythm that matched the night around them. Clara realized that life could surprise her even after years of solitude. She had been lonely for so long that she almost forgot hope could feel so vivid, so real, so alive. But here it was, in the warmth of Ethan's presence, in the gentle way he listened, in the laughter and quiet smiles they shared. That night, as Clara lay in bed, she thought about everything that had led her to this moment. The long walks alone, the quiet evenings with only her thoughts for company, the years of watching others connect while she remained in the shadows, all of it had brought her here. She realized that sometimes life had to take its time, that patience and courage could lead to the most beautiful surprises. She closed her eyes and whispered to